On September 16, 1994, in a remote schoolyard in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, 62 children saw something descend from the sky. It was broad daylight. The teachers were in a staff meeting. The children were on break. What happened in the next 15 minutes has never been explained, and the witnesses have never changed their story. This is the Ariel School incident. To understand why it still matters more than 30 years later, two things have to be true at the same time. The first, that the original 1994 testimonies, recorded within 48 hours of the event, are internally consistent across all 62 children. The second, that those same children, interviewed as adults 20 years later, tell the same story. What documentarian James Fox describes here is the second condition, the reason this case will not go away.
And I myself didn't believe it when I first heard about it back in 1997. And that segment of the film is the most, in my opinion, is the most powerful segment because
it's very compelling.
You've got all these children saying what they saw on camera after it happened, and then you see them 20 years later, and then we go to Africa and we meet with the headmistress, or she was a teacher at the time. We meet with other witnesses. We go to the landing site. We talk to people at the school. That case is absolutely, and it was witnessed by lots of other people in and around the area for several days before it chose a school to land. Steven?
It's so compelling because the children are all clearly, they're not actors. So as they're adults later, they're all talking about this moment, and it's like they had a religious experience together. Like they're all sharing it and talking about it, and you could tell it's like it's a deeply moving experience.
What he is describing here is something rare in witness testimony. Memory degrades, stories drift. Children, in particular, are highly suggestible, and over 30 years, a fabricated account would fracture. This one has not. These are the original 1994 interviews. The children were between 6 and 12 years old. None of them had met before being placed on camera.
We were playing down over there on the log.
Yeah?
And then we saw something shiny, so we all ran down over there.
And it was in the early morning?
It was at break time.
Yeah?
And then we saw something shiny. And we saw two people. They were in tight black suit. And they had big eyes. And a small, we didn't actually see their nose, but it was quite small. And their mouth was quite small as well. One of them was running in slow motion up across the ship. And the other one was standing beside the ship.
Yeah, you made a drawing, huh? It looked like this?
No, yeah, something like that. I couldn't see the eyes or the nose or the mouth. It was just blank, like a piece of paper.
Two beings, tight black suits, disproportionately large eyes. One stationary beside the craft, one moving, and according to the witness, moving slowly, as if the air itself was thicker around it. Human visual perception interprets unfamiliar motion as either slow or sped up. The slow motion detail appears in multiple independent child accounts that day, meaning the children were not coordinating. They were describing the same thing.
It was sort of like a round shape, sort of like a plate, sort of like two plates that were sort of like on top of each other. Then there was sort of like the hole, the hatch for it, and there was sort of like in between two trees. But you couldn't see that clearly, and it was just silver all over. And I didn't see any men or something like that.
You saw one UFO, but surrounded by little ones?
Yeah, one big one.
One spaceship.
Yeah?
Little ones
around.
Yeah, let me see. Let me see your drawing. One big one?
One big ship and then small ones surrounding it with there were lights.
Yeah.
Surrounding the ship.
What the children described, a primary disk with smaller satellite craft emitting colored light, does not match any 1994 aviation profile. It does not match a weather balloon, a stealth program, or a high-altitude reconnaissance vehicle. It also does not match what the children would have seen in popular media in Zimbabwe in 1994. There was no widespread internet access. There was no Steven Spielberg reference point locally. The visual vocabulary did not exist. Nothing on the books in 1994, or even today, accounts for what they described. This was something else. This is where the evidence moves from witness to ground.
Where the spaceship had landed, all the insects and ants and stuff like that were all dead, and there was a huge black mark there. And my mum said it might have just been a fire there, but I don't think there was. I think it was the alien ship.
Yeah, but you've gone to the place, of course, and have you seen anything?
No, we weren't allowed.
Investigators arrived within days. Cynthia Hind, the lead Zimbabwean investigator, documented a depression in the soil at the reported landing site. Vegetation discoloration consistent with localized heat. No accelerant traces, no human footprints leading in or out. The children's parents attributed it to a fire. The children did not. For many of them, that disbelief became the second trauma.
You have nightmares about it?
Yes, I used to, but then after about a year, I stopped dreaming about it. I dreamt that the same one I saw without hair, he came into my bedroom and he took me from my bed.
Did you dream that?
Yes.
Yeah?
And then I just screamed. I woke up and screamed.
And what did your mom say?
Well, she just kept on saying it was a nightmare. She didn't really believe me.
I wasn't scared a bit.
That detail matters. A fabricated story does not produce 20 years of recurring dreams. It does not produce the same dream content across multiple unrelated witnesses. And it does not explain the message, the part of the Ariel School case that most investigators consider the strangest claim of all. Multiple children reported receiving the same impression, not verbally, but as a kind of imposed thought. A warning about technology, about the planet, about what was coming. What Jacques Vallee, one of the most cited researchers in the field, has noted about these contact events is that the message itself is often more disturbing than the craft.
Not all of them had telepathic, but seeing the incident, how significant of a story would you give that?
Well, not only that, they had the same message.
Yes.
What the telepathic message was that technology is a real problem.
Yes.
And there's things that people are doing with technology that are going to ruin the earth.
Yes.
And they were trying to relay this to children, which is very strange.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I mean, maybe they just thought they were adults because they were the same size as the aliens.
That is the Ariel School case in one contrast, a 15-minute event in a remote schoolyard that has outlasted 30 years of attempted dismissal. In 2024, the surviving witnesses, now in their late 30s and early 40s, agreed to be re-interviewed on camera. Doctors, pilots, mothers, none of them have monetized the story. None of them have changed it. This is what convinced James Fox's own partner, who had previously dismissed the UFO subject entirely.
My partner, Rebecca, she's never had much of an interest in what I do, making documentaries on UFOs. I do other things as well, but when I was reviewing in the studio the archival interview of the children, she just dropped off a cup of coffee and she stopped and went, "Oh my God, those children are not lying. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen."
That is not proof of extraterrestrial contact. That is something narrower and harder to dismiss. 62 consistent witnesses, physical site evidence, and a message that has stayed identical across 3 decades of independent re-interview. Nothing about that profile fits hoax. Nothing about it fits mass hysteria. And nothing about it has been explained. The Ariel School incident remains, by the standard of every metric used in serious witness investigation, the most documented UFO landing case of the 20th century. And it happened in a schoolyard. For nearly 30 years, that schoolyard story was treated as a footnote. Not because the evidence was weak, because the case did not fit. In 1994, the Western press largely ignored it. The few outlets that covered it framed it as a curiosity, a story about children in a remote African town with overactive imaginations. There was no federal investigation, no congressional inquiry, no formal request from any Western intelligence service to interview the witnesses. In a sense, that was the suppression, not a cover-up, a dismissal, and the most striking confirmation of that dismissal came from a filmmaker who, 3 years later, was actively making a documentary on UFOs, and still walked away from this case.
I was doing my first documentary back in 1997 when I was just naive enough to think I can get an interview with Steven Spielberg. We had a mutual friend involved, this woman, Janet, and she gets back to me and she's like, "Yeah, so Spielberg's definitely not going to meet with you, but he knows you're working on this UFO documentary. He thinks you should look into this landing case that happened in Africa at the school." And I said to myself at the time, and remind you guys that I was making a film on UFOs.
What he is describing here is the institutional response in miniature. Even a documentarian working in the field, told directly by Steven Spielberg that the case was worth investigating, dismissed it on the same logic everyone else did. That a mass landing in broad daylight, with this volume of witnesses, could not have happened without the world knowing. The premise was wrong. The world did know. The world simply did not care. The first serious researcher on the ground was Cynthia Hind, a Zimbabwean ufologist who arrived within 48 hours, and conducted the initial round of child interviews. Days later, she was joined by Dr. John Mack, a Harvard professor of psychiatry, a Pulitzer Prize winner, and at the time, the most credentialed academic ever to take the UFO phenomenon seriously. Mack interviewed the children on camera, one by one, asking them to draw what they saw. The drawings, produced independently in separate rooms, are nearly identical. Mack died in 2004. He was struck by a drunk driver in London. His archival footage of the Ariel School interviews sat largely unseen for almost 2 decades.
I'm working on the case, and if you want to do something with me on it, a small piece, I could. So I got back into it. I licensed some of the footage that Dr. John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist that came and interviewed the school children on camera within a week of it happening. He unfortunately looked the wrong way in London, got run down by a car and died. So I contacted the Institute with the help of Randall Nickerson. I licensed the archival footage. We tracked down the witnesses today.
That footage is what built the second half of this story. And it is what made possible something no other UFO case in modern history has: a controlled, on-camera reunion of the original witnesses, as adults, 20 years later.
We flew them in from all different corners of the world, brought them together. A lot of them were standing right next to each other. They came face to face, and one of the things I've realized was that there were roughly 100 kids in the playground, broad daylight, Ariel School, Ruwa, Zimbabwe, 1994, and they got within some of them within arm's length of these beings, and brought these witnesses together for the first time in 20 years. And a lot of them hadn't even told their significant others, just because they said they were tired of having to defend this.
That detail is not incidental. It is the entire weight of the case. These were not professional witnesses. They were not influencers. They were not selling a book. Most of them had spent 2 decades not talking about what happened, because talking about it cost them more than staying silent. Doctors, pilots, engineers, mothers, none of them recanted, none of them embellished. And when they were placed in a room together for the first time since they were children, most of them in their late 30s, their accounts still matched.
It's so compelling because the children are all clearly, they're not actors. So as they're adults later, they're all talking about this moment, and it's like they had a religious experience together. Like they're all sharing it and talking about it, and you could tell it's like it's a deeply moving experience. If they were actors, they wouldn't have been able to do such a good job.
This is the threshold the case clears that almost no other UFO incident in the historical record clears. The witnesses are not soldiers, not pilots, not government insiders with security clearances and motives. They are adults who, as children, saw something they could not explain, and have spent 30 years being told it did not happen. The standard debunk argues that witnesses confabulate, that memory is unreliable, that group dynamics produce shared false narratives. Those mechanisms exist. They are real. But they degrade over time. They do not strengthen. The Ariel School testimonies have strengthened. The drawings produced by adults in 2022 are more detailed, not less, than the drawings produced by the same individuals as children in 1994. The emotional response, captured on camera, is more pronounced, not muted. That is the opposite of confabulation. That is the signature of unprocessed memory. That profile does not exist anywhere else in the modern UFO record, except perhaps in one other place. In April 1966, at Westall High School in Melbourne, Australia, approximately 300 students and teachers reported watching a disc-shaped craft descend behind a tree line adjacent to the school grounds. The craft remained on the ground for an estimated 20 minutes before ascending and departing at high speed.
Right.
But I definitely had to ask myself, look, during the production of the film, Paula Harris actually turned me on to another landing case that happened in Australia in 1966 at a school. And this time there were roughly 300 witnesses that saw a disc land right outside a playground in Australia. And we went to Australia and investigated that case, went to the landing site, talked to eyewitness testimony, people that jumped the fence at the school playground and ran over to where this thing landed. And then we even interviewed a guy who snapped a photograph of a disc, a Polaroid, back in 1966, 2 days prior to the incident.
Westall and Ariel are separated by 28 years and 10,000 kilometers. The witness counts are different. The geography is different. But the structure of both cases is identical. A daytime landing, a school-age witness population, multiple independent corroborating drawings, and a near-total absence of follow-up investigation by any official body. The interaction lasted approximately 15 minutes, and then it ended. What remains is testimony. 62 witnesses, identical drawings, a consistent message, 3 decades of unchanged accounts, a second corroborating case from another continent, and the fact that in 32 years, no investigator, official, academic, or independent, has produced an alternative explanation that survives serious scrutiny. If this is the type of content you want more of, consider becoming a channel member. Members get early access to every video, exclusive access to polls to help us pick our next video, and for our top tier, special shoutouts in every single video. If membership isn't for you, It still helps this channel to subscribe, like the video, and comment down below with your thoughts. The comment section is always crazy. There's 2 more videos on the screen right now. Pick one that pulls you in. Thanks for watching.